What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today I've got another quick mixing tip for you. This is a simple trick. It's using EQ to essentially create a sense of width between a left and right, instrument component. Like, let's say you've got a doubled acoustic guitar or a doubled electric guitar, and you've got like a left side and you've got a right side. This is a cool way to use kind of opposing EQ to create a really massive sense of width in your mix. So yeah, let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen with you here. So I've got this mix pulled up. I'll go ahead and let you listen to a bit of it here. So it's a great mix, really dense. There's lots of instruments happening here. I've got drum machines and real drums, bass, synths, acoustics, electrics, keys, more synths, organs. There's all kinds of stuff happening in this mix. And so a good way to help create a sense of difference in the left and right and make it feel even, wider and kind of larger than life is to use EQ to create some of that difference. And when I say difference, that's another way that you could kind of explain what you're hearing whenever a mix feels wide. It's that the left side and the right side feel different enough that it kind of does this trick to your brain where, because your brain can't focus fully on the left side or the right side at the same time, at least this is how I've heard it explained to me. I'm definitely not a neural scientist or whatever. But basically, from what I've heard, your brain can't really focus on the left side and the right side at the same time. So when we create elements, especially like during the production process, which could be a whole other video series talking about that, but even as it pertains to mixing, when we create a sense of what you're hearing on the left side feels different than the right side, that's what makes a mix feel really wide. In fact, I'd go as far as saying when a mix has tons of stereo elements to it, if everything is stereo, those mixes tend to feel the smallest because there's not enough difference, even though you might be hearing a piano or whatever it is, and it sounds like, it's kind of surrounding you. If everything sounds like that, essentially everything's going to feel like it's kind of in the middle, or it's going to feel narrow. It'll still feel stereo, obviously, or like it's in a space, but it's not going to sound as wide as if we have, like, let's say we've got a mono guitar playing one part on the left side, fully panned left, and we've got a different guitar part panned fully right. It's going to sound like it's pulling your attention fully left and right. It makes it kind of feel like everything's just larger than life. So when we do that with EQ on the mixing side, because again, if we're producing and we've got control over what's being recorded, what parts are being created, then maybe we can try to set ourselves up for success in that phase to make the mix feel really wide. But if we don't have control over that, we can use an EQ trick. I'm not saying that it'll do as much as if you're recording two separate guitar parts, but it definitely helps. So I want to show you how to do that here. I'm going to solo my electric guitar bus. I've got all of these electric guitar parts. These actually are in stereo, but I'm doing some manipulation where, like, even though these rhythm electrics are recorded in stereo, I've got them fully panned. So I'm basically at that point just kind of picking which amp I want to use, right? So I'm not 100% sure how these guitars were recorded, but like, let's say the guitar player was recording through stereo amps. He's got, one type of amp on the left, one type of amp on the right. And then he obviously sends me a grouped stereo recording of that. Whenever I pan fully left or fully right, I'm kind of just picking which side of, like, which amp I want. Like, we can listen to that here. I'm just going to solo one of these actually and put it in the middle. I'm going to pan it left. Pan it right. So again, it's subtle, but you can kind of tell that what's happening on the left side of his channel versus the right tonally is a little bit different. Again, I'm not 100% sure what amps or what his setup was. These guitars were recorded by Casey Moore, who's an amazing guitar player. And so the tone is awesome. So again, I'm not trying to take, tone that doesn't sound good and shape it into something different. I'm just trying to take what's there and create as much width as possible. So with these rhythm electrics, go ahead and solo. I'm going to show you all the guitars playing together real quick. So you can see here, all that's really happening on the bus, I've got kind of an overarching EQ that's just shaping some things here. I'm taking out about, up to about 132 hertz from the low end, just kind of shaving off that stuff that doesn't need to be there. And then same thing with the highs. I'm shaving off a little bit of the highs. My trick to doing that is kind of like, just bring the filters up or down until you can kind of notice it. Sometimes I'll be a little bit more generous on the high end because I want to carve out some room here for vocals, for maybe synth instruments, other things. So I don't necessarily want all of the high end information in the electric guitars. I want to kind of shape that. But again, just showing you kind of that top down approach that I've talked about in other videos. I'm setting up all of my other channels for success by kind of giving them an overall space in the mix, right? And then I've got a little bit of like a bus compressor, just kind of gluing all those together. Not doing a ton there. But anyway, let's listen to these rhythm electrics soloed. So I want to show you what's happening here. So if you notice, these are just, got SSL channel strip plugins on here. You can get them from Waves or Plugin Alliance. SSL makes some. So it's not even about the plugin so much as it is just kind of the function. I like SSL EQs on some things. They're a little bit more surgical versus like a Neve would be considered more musical because it's a really wide kind of EQ band. But with the SSLs, we can kind of do a thing here. Plus, it's just graphically, it's easy to see what's happening. So on this side, this is our right side. This is our left side. You can see that at the top here. And if you'll notice what I've got going on here, I've just got like on the right side, I've got about 7 dB. Again, this is not an exact science. So don't just, take this exact same frequency and turn it up 7 dB and think that that's going to make all the difference. It's always going to be relative to what you're working on, your mix, your instruments. But what I did was I just kind of found, in fact, I'm going to explain this and then I'm going to actually like flatten it out and kind of recreate it and show you. But basically, I'm just boosting some frequencies that I like in the right guitar, the right rhythm guitar, and then I'm roughly subtracting those same frequencies, the same frequency band on the left side. And so what it's doing is it's kind of like boosting a frequency on one side while subtracting it on the other side. So essentially creating on the left side, creating a little pocket where that same frequency that we're boosting is less present on the left side, right? And so, but now we're going to compensate for that we're going to find another frequency in the left side that feels really nice, and we're going to boost that frequency. And on the right side, we're going to reduce that frequency. So again, it's like we're going to take one guitar, the right side guitar, boost something, and then take the left guitar, subtract that same thing. But on the left side, now we're going to actually boost something else and subtract that from the right side. So what we're doing is we're basically we're taking these guitar tones that, while even though they weren't necessarily overly similar in the first place, because a lot of guitar players, when they're recording parts, they'll use a different guitar, a different amp, like let's say it's just a straight up doubled guitar part. He might record with a Strat and a Fender amp on the left side, and then record with a Les Paul and a Marshall on the right, or something like that, right? So a lot of guitar players, when they're tracking, they're already trying to take ways or trying to find ways to make the left side and the right side feel different tonally. So what we're doing on the mixing side, again, because we don't have control over what amp or what guitar was used, we can kind of further accentuate that with this EQ trick. And again, it's subtle, but it's a lot of times what I find is these subtle little tricks like this across all of the channels, or across, kind of using this mentality across a bunch of different channels. It makes a lot of difference. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to kind of flatten these guys out and show you that process. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to solo just one side. And let's just kind of sweep the frequencies to see what sounds good. And again, I'm not saying there's, I'm not looking for something in particular. I just want to kind of see what sounds good. This is relative to whatever part you're doing this on, whatever, the context of your own mix is. I kind of like this bitey. I think that's why I landed right around like 1.7 or so. I like this kind of bitey high mid thing that's happening. Yeah, it's growly, it's nice. Again, remember, we've got some of those highs cut here on our bus so that we don't want to get too shrill with it. Probably not gonna grab like the high shelf and crank it, and because I don't want the guitars to be really thin and shrill sounding. And what's funny is you'll notice this across the board with mixing, like when we solo it, it kind of doesn't sound, I'm not going to say it doesn't have, the tone isn't good, but it doesn't sound the way you would think it was. If we were going to just solo every instrument in a mix and try to make the instrument itself sound as awesome as possible when it's soloed, we're going to end up having a really big mess. Because if every single instrument in a mix, if we're just trying to make it sound as fat and punchy and large as it possibly can, then nothing's going to sound that way. It's all going to just kind of turn into this pile of mush at the end. So really what we're doing is trying to be intentional about these moves, to really bring out something not just that sounds cool on its own, but that's going to serve a purpose in the greater mix. So for me, with these rhythm guitars, I want it to be kind of bitey and kind of, growly on the far left and right sides of my mix, because, I want the left and right rhythm guitars to even sound different from each other, because I want to make it feel like he's just playing chords on those rhythm parts, and I want those rhythm parts to feel like it's just kind of the far left and right extents of our mix are just driving and punchy. It's kind of mid present, mid forward. It's just kind of aggressive sounding, right? So that's kind of what my goal is here. So if we listen. Yeah, it's nice and growly. So now let's do the same thing on the left rhythm guitar. Step one, actually, let's grab that same frequency. So here's our right EQ, right? So we're about at 1.7, which is about where I was when I first showed you this. 1.7 on the left side. So we're boosting by 8.3. Let's reduce by 8.3 and see what this sounds like. So you'll notice that one of the things that immediately happens is that our right side is instantly louder, obviously because we're essentially boosting the gain on that channel by 8.3 dB in this frequency range. So first thing we're going to do, now that we're reducing this, I want to go back to the solo here. And now that I'm taking away, I want to add something back that feels valuable and feels nice. So let's listen here. I'm going to grab the low mids on this guy. So that's kind of a nice range right there, around like 759 hertz. Again, it's not an exact number, but it just kind of boosting the thickness, the fatness of it. Let's kind of lean into that. I might not do 13 dB, but that's kind of nice, right around that 7 dB mark. And then what we can do here, since we took quite a bit of the high mids away, we actually can compensate a little bit here on the high shelf. Again, I don't want to do too much. I don't want to make it thin or shrill, but we can boost it just to bring a little bit of that top end clarity back. Yeah, just bringing a little bit of life back into it. So now let's listen to these guys together. So you'll notice that, again, the right side is still a little bit loud. And since we're boosting, we're going to probably end up bringing some of that volume down just to kind of level match it. But first I want to grab this same frequency here. So 766. So let's grab right around there. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but just kind of right around there. And we're gaining this up by 7.6 dB on the left side. So let's bring it down about the same on the right side and see what that does. That feels pretty nice. Again, I want to level match that here. So I'm going to actually close this guy out. So this is just the right side. I want to watch the faders here and get it where it's metering around the same on both sides. So that feels pretty good right there. So anyway, now back in the context of our mix, again, it's not supposed to be the loudest thing in the mix, so you might not hear it as well, but let's just kind of see what that feels like in the overall mix. Again, it's subtle, but it's one of those things that in the context of the mix, it's not a focal point. So we're not like, I brought it up there so you can kind of hear what we're doing or what it sounds like. But in the purpose that it serves in the mix, it's really more so to create a sense of drive and aggression. And then what we're doing is creating a greater sense of width with that drive and aggression. It's not supposed to be, it's not serving the same purpose as the lead guitar. But it is doing something in the mix that's valuable. And so we want to make sure that we're accentuating that, right? And that it's serving its purpose. So real quick, I'm going to show you kind of what I did the same thing, or how I did the same thing here with the lead guitar parts. So this is EG pads. It's really just kind of more like some textures and stuff that he was playing that are really nice with quite a bit of verb. Now again, these are stereo, so why am I not just panning these all the way right or left? Well, because there's two amps playing, and it's got a sense of width because of the effects. So really what this is doing in the mix, in this context of this song, I am putting it's kind of almost like two lead guitar parts. I'll show you this other one here that's actually labeled lead. So together, they're both kind of doing, I would almost say it's less of like a lead versus, rhythm thing. It's more of like an EG1, EG2. It's almost like you've got two lead guitars, which this is really popular, like in worship music or Christian, CCM music, also in rock and other mixes there's a lot of guitar stuff happening. It's almost like you've got two lead guitars, but they're playing different things. They're tonally different, but they're both kind of needing to be up in the mix, serving a more melodic purpose than like the rhythm guitars that I just showed you. So what we're doing with these guys, we're not going to pan them all the way left or right. We want to leave them where they're still kind of in the center of the mix, but they're leaning off to the sides just a little bit. So it still has the width of the effects, But it's a little bit, with the width, it still feels like it's kind of tilted to one side or the other so that there's a little bit of separation that's happening. But with that separation, we can also do our little trick here to create some extra width. So again, I've already kind of done the same concept here that I just showed you, so I won't walk you all the way through the exact same thing. But it's essentially what we did with the rhythm guitars. You'll notice I brought the gain up on the lead a little bit to kind of level match, this EG pads that's happening. But yeah, it's subtle, but it's just further. Here's what these guys sound like together if I bypass the EQ. Let's bring the EQ back in. Again, it's subtle. It's not the most crazy overt thing that, nobody's probably going to compliment your mix and say, man, your electric guitars felt so different and separate. Like, nobody's going to notice that kind of stuff. But that's not the point, right? The point is that we use the tools, that we use the channels, the material that's being provided to us. We use the things that are in front of us to shape them intentionally into something that's going to serve a greater purpose in our mix, that ultimately is going to, allow people to have a great experience when listening to the song. So anyway, that is my EQ trick. It works on acoustic guitars. Honestly, you could probably apply it even to synth parts or things that are similar. I think I get the most impact out of it when there's like two mono sources, especially like with let's say you have a doubled acoustic guitar that's just recorded mono and you've got it panned all the way left and all the way right. That seems to work really well. Because that's where you're going to hear so much of the slight differences in the EQ opposing on both sides. It's really going to help bring it out. It works with stereo electrics as well. But again, the first thing that we're doing is we need to identify what is this individual part that's being played. What is it serving in the mix? How is it serving the vision of the artist? And ultimately, how is it serving the song? And then when we can determine that, that's where we can go in and say, well, let's use the tools that we have to further help create that intentional space that instrument is living in. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Please let me know. I want to do more of these, more of these little quick tips and things like that. So please let me know in the comments if you have any ideas. Let me know if you have any questions. If there's anything that doesn't make sense that I need to cover in another video, I'm happy to do that. I also would love to know other overall questions that you might have with mixing. How can I help? How can I be valuable? How can I serve you? Let me know. As always, please like and subscribe if this was helpful to you. If there's somebody you know that this would be beneficial to, share it with them. It helps the channel, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you watching, and I'll be back soon with another video.